right now we just got so much going on. This veterans court is only. I'm gonna probably roll over. I think that's we should recommend it to me earlier. That would be recommended it. Yeah. I don't know how many seconds. Good evening, everyone. It is now 6:30, and we welcome each of you to tonight's Board of Commissioners meeting. So at this time, we're going to ask Chaplain Leonard Himes with the Beulah Baptist Church, who is also our fire department chaplain, to begin with us in an invocation this evening.
It's good to be here. Let's pray together. Ask the Lord's blessing on this meeting. Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for your goodness to us. We thank you tonight for our community and all those that labor in it. And Lord, the decisions that will be thought through and Lord, everything discussed, we pray for your blessings upon that. Give wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Bless our commissioners and all involved in authority. And Lord, we just ask you to take charge of this night, that you'd be honored. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Chaplain Himes, and welcome again, everyone. Our meeting is now hereby called to order. We do have some modifications to the agenda. There will be an executive session regarding personnel matters for item 15C. And then we're now called, any other changes to the agenda today? Commissioner Prince?
Chairman, thank you so much. The 4th District respectfully requests that the Veterans Court be taken off the consent agenda and moved to an irregular agenda item.
Okay, we have a motion to move the Veterans Treatment Court program to the, off of the consent agenda to the regular agenda. Is there any other changes?
So moved.
Commissioner, okay, we've got any other changes?
Madam Chair, I'd like to add the ZAB appointment from District 1. Well,
Okay, well, what we'll do, we've got three motions to amend the agenda. So do we have a motion to accept these modifications or amendments?
So moved.
We got a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, well, we will move those items regarding the Veterans Court and the zoning advisory appointment for District 1 to the first item of the consent agenda. But at this time, we would like to recognize a couple of proclamations, and I understand that our own county manager will make those presentations this evening.
Good evening, Chair and board members. This evening we do have 2 proclamations, and what I will ask is that each group wait until after both proclamations have been read, and then we'll ask the groups to come forward and take a picture with the board. The first proclamation is a proclamation for Paint Henry Blue, naming April as National Child Abuse Prevention Month. Proclamation recognizing April as National Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas children are key to the state and county's future success, prosperity, and quality of life, and although children are our most valuable resources, they are also our most vulnerable. And whereas all children have a right to be safe and to be provided an opportunity to thrive, learn, and grow free from abuse and neglect. And whereas child abuse and neglect can be prevented by supporting and strengthening Henry County's families, working to prevent the far-reaching efforts of maltreatment, providing the opportunity for children to develop healthy, trusting family bonds, which is the foundation for strong communities. And whereas we must work together as partners to provide parents with the social support, knowledge of parenting, child development, and concrete resources they need to cope with stress and nurture their children. And whereas by providing safe, stable, nurturing relationships and environments for our children, free of violence, abuse, and neglect, we can ensure that Henry County's children reach their potential as the next generation of leaders, helping to secure the future of this community, state, and nation. And whereas the Paint Henry Blue campaign is a notable month-long initiative to bring awareness and prevention efforts of child abuse to the forefront and Prevent Child Abuse Henry will hold a pinwheel vigil at the Municipal Courthouse in McDonough on March 29th, beginning at 6:30 p.m., and they invite the entire community to come out and show support in the recognition and prevention of child abuse. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Henry County Board of Commissioners that the month of April is designated as Child Abuse Prevention Month in Henry County, and we encourage all citizens to support programs and initiatives that work in the best interest of our children in preventing child abuse and making a positive difference in the lives of our children. This 20th day of March, 2018, June Wood Chair, Stephanie Braun, County Clerk. And then our next proclamation, in recognition of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated on its 110th anniversary. Whereas Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority was founded on January 15, 1908 on the campus of Howard University in Washington, D.C., making Alpha Kappa Alpha the oldest Greek letter organization established by African-American college-trained women who trailblazed changing patterns of human relations in America during the 20th century. And whereas through the years, AKA has used the sisterhood as a grand lever to raise the status of African Americans, particularly girls and women. AKA has enriched minds and encouraged long life learning, provided aid for the poor, the sick, and underserved, initiated social action to advance human and civil rights, worked collaboratively with other groups to maximize outreach on progressive endeavors, and continuously produced leaders to continue its credo of service. And whereas by continuing its service throughout Henry and Clayton counties, Psi Alpha Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha was started on December 10, 2005, represented by 164 diverse, talented, and distinguished women. Psi Alpha Omega believes that sisterhood, scholarship, and service are primary to its commitment to Henry County. Since its inception, Psi Alpha Omega has been service agents by mentoring middle school and high school girls and boys, collecting hundreds of backpacks and food baskets, and distributing those to local schools and families, providing career education and clothing to domestic violence shelters, and partner with Laurel Park Nursing Home to support the needs of its residents, just to name a few. And whereas in celebration of the sorority's 110th Founders Day, Psi Alpha Omega performed 256 hours of community service over the long celebratory weekend. Now therefore be it proclaimed that the Henry County Board of Commissioners wishes to extend its sincere gratitude to Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, Psi Alpha Omega Chapter for their outstanding efforts to improve the community and congratulates them on celebrating 110 years of service, sisterhood, and scholarship. This 20th day of March, 2018, signed by June Wood Chair, attested by Stephanie Braun, County Clerk. At this time, I will ask representatives from our Paint Henry Blue to come forward, and I do believe they have a presentation for the board as well.
All right, thank you. And as they are coming, we do ask the board to join in for the picture. And we also want to just say thank you to everyone, including those in our audience who are here and even those that are watching, to help continue to keep our children safe and to also prevent child abuse. So again, we welcome you and thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of Prevent Child Abuse Henry and the entire Paint Henry Blue Committee, we want to thank our county commissioners for recognizing the month of April. We wish we didn't have to recognize the month of April as Child Abuse Prevention Month, but unfortunately it is still going on. And so with this, we hope that we can bring recognition to our efforts, and we invite everyone to come out and join us March 29th at 6:30 is a meet and greet from 6:30 to 7 with all the agencies involved. And from 7 to 8, we have a program scheduled. So we invite all of you to come and all the public as well. And we do have a couple of goodies for you guys, if you don't mind. So
Again, thank you very much. Okay. Commissioners.
And at this time, we'd like to ask the members of Alpha Kappa Alpha sororities, Psi Alpha Omega chapter to come forward and receive their proclamation. As the ladies of Alpha Kappa, Alpha Sorority, and Psi Alpha Omega chapter, we just want to say congratulations on your historical moment, and we also say thank you for the impact that you're making to our communities. Thank you again for being here, everyone. Well, thank you. We will now move into our consent agenda, and the following agenda items are considered on the consent agenda. The first item that we have from our courts is regarding the Accountability Court resolution requesting to apply for a grant
from the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council for FY 2019 for the Adult Felony Drug Program and also the Mental Health Court. Again, we will move the Veterans Treatment Court Program to the regular agenda. The other consent agenda item is from Juvenile Court, and this is a resolution requesting to apply for a grant from the Criminal Justice Coordination Council for FY 2019, funding the following programs, again, regarding the functionality of family therapy and also the Juvenile Mental Health Court. And then we also have the DUI Drug Court. That resolution also is to apply for a grant from the Criminal Justice Coordination Council for FY 2019 funding for the DUI Drug Court. And then our consent agenda item from Public Safety is an item from the Henry County Fire Department, and is a resolution authorizing a budget transfer in the amount of $19,200 from general fund to general fund capital account from donations received from the Henry County Fire Department golf tournament. Are there any other items that we're requesting to move from the consent agenda to the regular agenda? Hearing none, we're open for a motion to approve the consent agenda and moving the Veterans Treatment Court to the regular agenda.
So move.
We have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Further questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. This ends our consent agenda. We're now moving to our accountability court resolution, and again, this is to apply for a grant from the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council for FY 2019 for the Veterans Treatment Court. And so we'll just, again, ask Commissioner Prince to take the lead in introducing the presentation there.
Chair. The reason I asked for the accountability court, the Veterans Accountability Court, to be pulled off the consent agenda, we don't have a Veterans Court at this time, and I wanted some people to come up and speak to the public about what the Veterans Court is and what it means to the veterans. So at this time, if Craig Oglesby is here, if he'll come forward. Thank you, Craig.
Chair Wood, Board. Just a few remarks before I invite a couple of guests up to speak to you and to the folks here tonight. About 9 years ago, there was some vision about what to do in our community with the criminal justice system and some involvement with those who had mental illness or drug abuse problems. And Judge Powell and some others started working on the vision for the mental health court. We call it resource court here locally. Through the actions of the state court judges, Chief Judge Studdard and the state court judges, and of course Chief Judge McGarity and the Superior Court judges, they created an order that established the mental health court in Henry County. Started off with good success, a lot of impact, because they recognized that too many people were just being incarcerated. Not enough to just throw the book at somebody, but we need to look at how this impacts our community. So a couple of years later, Judge Amaro started our drug court, adult felony drug court program. And in all of these programs, again, the idea is not looking at how to just apply the rule of law, but to look at how to treat those who are in our community who are found themselves involved in the criminal justice system through issues with mental health and drug abuse. So with that, we have these accountability court programs that hold these persons accountable to our community, their community, and to the rule of law, but with compassion to recognize that there are issues that need to be addressed because some of these folks are unable to make good quality life decisions that affect themselves and those around us, all of us in our community. So we've had a few years of successes. We've got some data and some understanding of how well this is working. So with 176 persons who have come through those two programs, and of course Judge Blunt and the DUI court program, a very robust and successful program to deal with those with DUI, both drug and alcohol. All these successes, what we find today is that we have, in the two programs, mental health and drug court, we have about an 18% recidivism rate. So out of 96 graduates, we only have about 18 people who have recommitted crimes in this community. And that's a real impact. It's a real impact on a lot of areas, and then their lives and their families. So we feel like at this time, we're in a good place, in a good time, and a good moment to take advantage of all of that we've built and established with good teams and those who are skilled and trained in working with these issues, to now embrace our next move of a Veterans Treatment Court, to serve those who have served us, still holding accountable to our community, and of course the rule of law, but to help them get back into a place where they can be successful and function and be enjoy their lives with the rest of us and be a part of our community. So with that, I'd like to introduce a couple of gentlemen from the Cobb County Veterans Treatment Court, Mr. Ernie Hines, if you'll come, and Mr. Anthony Hood. And I believe they're going to address some of their successes that we're going to be modeling after and working closely with to build our program after.
Good evening, Commissioner and board members. My name is Ernie Hines, and I'm the mentor coordinator for Cobb County. Just give you a little background on how I got involved in it. Just a little history that our county has been involved in Veterans Court since 2014. So we had a little time in the field, as you might say. I'm a Vietnam veteran. I served 2 tours of Vietnam. Retired Sergeant Major Marine Corps. And when I saw and had an opportunity to help these veterans, to give them the chance that I didn't have when I came home. And I'm sure some of my brothers over here know what I'm talking about. When we came home from Vietnam, there was no courts, no nothing, no abilities, no treatments. Nothing was worthwhile. So I took it as a personal goal to try to get involved with that. And fortunately, it's one of the highlights of my life, my career. The military has done a lot for me, and I feel I've done a lot for this country. And it's starting to pay back, and I'm starting to pay it back as best I can. Just to kind of let you know something, a little background again, it started, the Veterans Court started in Buffalo, New York. I mean, this has been an issue and a problem that's been seen for a long time. And they started, and I want to believe in 1969, they've had a Veterans Court. And they've gone around showing other courts on having a mentor's boot camp. So, and I attended that along with several other mentors throughout the country, and quite a few here from the state of Georgia. The concept that we have in the Veterans Court, I'll try to be brief. They told me I could speak a little bit, so I'll do that. It's 4 phases. And in those 4 phases, it takes about 18 months to complete the program. Now, in those 18 months, we say 18 months, but it usually averages at about almost 2 years. And the reason why it averages that, because any time that any individuals in the program break the rule or do something or come up with a dirty urine or been drinking or whatever while they're in this program, they're set back. So that 18 months can go as far as 2 years before they complete the program. They have weekly random drug screens. They have mental health counseling. And a lot of sponsors through the 12-step. And they all go to AA organizations that help out with the program, NA programs. So we have a lot of supporters. The mission and purpose of the Veterans Court is pretty much is to reduce recidivism. The same things that you're talking about, rehabilitation of veterans, and one of our main goals is leave no veteran behind. And then that was a cry that we had, that we left nobody behind on the battlefield. And that is the concept that we take and do in this program. If I didn't say it, all the people involved in this program are veterans. The mentors are veterans. And they're counseling veterans. And basically what it is a program that we call the buddy system. We're fortunate enough to have one mentor to each mentee. Right now, we have about 27 mentees in our program, and we have 32 mentors. So our program is doing well. And the people are really taking, in Cobb County, are really taking the notion to this and volunteering. Like I say again, I got volunteers looking to help people. So that's a place that you want to be in. Most of the people in the program, the mentees profile, and pretty much suffer from PTSD, TBI, and MST. Well, you want to ask me what those acronyms mean. That a lot of times, in regards to brain injuries, there's a lot of concussions, and each ward has its different casualties. And there's a lot of concussions. People get in tanks and houses, explosives. A lot of you heard booby traps and whatever, and it caused a lot of difficulties. The makeup of the Veterans Court, the team, is 4 teams. We have a court team, treatment team, a mentor team, and the community team. A mentor, the community plays a very important part in regards to helping these veterans. A lot of them, professionals offer free services as far as dental, even though they get some from the VA, but a lot of professionals do that. As far as legal service, they'll come out and do that for us, so, and do pro bono work. So we have everybody involved on that. The court team consists of the judge, mentor coordinator, assistant district attorney, court administrator, deputy sheriff, and probation. When these people are in this program, we still have the probation officers going out to check just to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. And we do spot checks on the houses, making sure they're not drinking at home or having other things they're not supposed to do in the program. The treatment team basically is the VA hospital, the Veterans Justice Outreach Coordinator, and that's the individuals you have from the VA. Once you start this program, you'll probably be assigned Veterans Coordinator from the VA, and that person is invaluable. It's worth their weight in gold because they'll get the applicants involved in the programs and also letting them know what benefits that they have. We also have a vet center, and that treats basically combat veterans. Those individuals have been in extreme combat conditions. We have a center that takes care of them. Other things in that, the mentor requirements, and which you're going to need starting this program. And one of the things I would suggest to you in doing this program, I was one of the basic ones that started out in Cobb County 4 years ago when we started this program. And it's a thing that we always say, make sure that you get a mentor team together. Don't start looking for your applicants first, because they're in jail, you know where they're at. You need to get your mentor team together. And once you establish someone that can be the coordinator or have the dedicated time to that, they can do that. When we require our mentors, when they come into the program, we require a minimum of time of 96 hours a year. That's it. That's just basically coming to court when they come to court, and also check up on them, be their buddy, ask them to help them get through this the process, because it's not an easy program. It is not an easy program. We have branches, people serving as mentors. As you can see, with 32 people, we have people from all branches of the service are covered. We even have a person from the Norwegian Army that wanted to join being a mentor. So it took some time, but we got them in there. Community services, basement, we also are fortunate enough to have somebody from the Department of Labor that's a mentor. And that is, he's the individual kind of help us with get jobs for these individuals that's in the program. So he does a little work on the side on that and helping us do that. Needless to say, and I won't go into all the numbers, that there is a cost breakdown in returning people back to being permanent taxpayers. Because if you don't, then they're going to cost us more money keeping them incarcerated. So it's a big difference on that. And if you want, I can give you some numbers that we have on that later. In the program, if I did mention, is that, again, we've had thus far about 26 graduates from the program. And we try to graduate about once every 90 days. Sometimes it goes every 120 days of graduations. Out of that, no one has come back. No one has committed a crime. And that's something that we're blessed with. But what I would like to do at this time is introduce to you one of our graduates. And I'm proud of him, and everyone, our team is. To see an individual coming to you in court with coveralls and shackles, and then seeing him how he is today. So I'd like to present to you Anthony Hood.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Hood. I'm a disabled veteran. When I got out of the military and everything, I suffered from PTSD, traumatic brain injury, nerve damage. I had 4 screws in my ankle, spinal stenosis, sleep apnea, a whole list of things. And I didn't get treatment right off. In Virginia, the Veterans Administration, they allotted the programs and things, they were losing funds. So a program went from 60 days to 90 days to 30 days. Eventually, with all my ailments and everything, I started self-medicating myself. I was drinking and using drugs. I wasn't being responsible. I paid no attention to the law. I was lost. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I started getting treatment from my PTSD and my head injury and everything, and that took years. It took me almost 20 years to get a definite diagnosis as to what's wrong with me. When I moved to Georgia and everything, I got a primary care doctor that started probing a lot deeper into what was ailing me and everything. But along with that, I had legal issues, driving on suspended license, being late on my child support, not paying my fines, just not being responsible, period. I didn't care. I kept telling judges I didn't need a driver's license to drive, but they kept telling me I do. So I had numerous driving on suspended license charges, and it wasn't until my license got suspended that I got a DUI. So I started getting DUIs and driving on suspended license. So when I was in jail, a fellow veteran who was joining the Veterans Accountability Court gave me this packet. I read it. First thing on my mouth, I am not going to do 18 months in no program. It's too long. But then I looked at how long I was ruining my life and how many people's lives I had destroyed because I didn't care about myself and I didn't care about anyone else. So when I tried to get into the Veterans Accountability Court, along with my illness and everything, I had a little bit of impatience. They was taking too long to accept me in the program. But I settled down. I was accepted into the program, and it was one of the greatest days of my life when Judge Green accepted me into the program. I did two years in the program. They tell you 18 months, but it ain't 18 months. It's a minimum of 18 months. And they explain that to you when you think you're going to graduate in 18 months. But it was the best 2 years of my life. I learned to be responsible. I was accountable for all my actions. I was where I was supposed to be every single time. I graduated with no negative urinalysis, no sanctions, no setbacks, no earmarks. My mentor and I, we established a good relationship. We are friends now. I visited his home, he's visited mine. We do community functions together even after the program. So to have somebody walk with you when you're changing your life or struggling or have issues and not judge you makes a big difference. I think this Veterans Accountability Court is a good thing for veterans who are lost. After I graduated, we started an alumni group. It's called WAR, and what it means is Warriors Anonymous Refuge. And our mantra is we don't leave any soldier behind. It's a hard program. You have to make your mind up that you want to do this every single day. You just can't do it for 1 week and then slack off. It has to be an every single day thing. And I've been sober now 2 years, 4 months, and 15 days after drinking and drugging for over 40 years. And my health is manageable. I'm in a lot of pain. I'm still suffering with my illnesses from my military career and everything, but it's manageable. I have resources now. Mr. Hines was talking about the team. When I joined Veterans Accountability Program, I had about 6 members on my team: psychiatrists, psychologists, nutritionists, primary care doctor, substance abuse counselor, and a mentor, along with my family, the courts, and then everybody that's involved in the court. We were like one unit. So when a fellow veteran was struggling, we tried to help him. We became a family. We did things together. We discussed things together. It's hard. The veterans have to be accountable. But I tell everybody that I come in contact with, you gotta want it. You gotta want it. I never saw the sense of signing up for something and then quitting. I'm gonna see it all the way through to the end. And it's the best thing that ever happened to me. My relationship with my family has been restored. I'm now taking care of my parents the way an oldest son's supposed to do. My children call me regularly, even on my birthday. And I'm happy now. I have my driver's license. I don't know where I'd be without the Veterans Accountability Program. I've been in other programs before: substance abuse, alcoholism, drug treatment, and all of that. But they give you the information and then they turn you loose. Whereas the Veterans Accountability Program, they make you accountable. And if you're accountable for your actions and everything, trust me, I think a lot of people will want to do the right thing. Because if I got a choice of going home or going to jail, I'd rather go home. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate that. In closing, for our part, thank you for this opportunity. You may ask, have we not had veterans come through our other programs? We have, and they've been successful in certain areas, but the veteran requires a certain level of engagement and specialty that a Veterans Treatment Court would provide. And of course, Judge Pipkin has graciously stepped up to say he would take this on under his court, and we're very grateful for that. I'm sure Judge Amaro is, with his plate being full. Again, thank you for your consideration, and Judge Mara?
Can I just say something quickly? About 3 weeks ago, I had a young man come into court, a veteran like them, who'd put themselves in harm's way, who'd been in a theater of war, who'd suffered from PTSD, who was homeless, living under a bridge here in Henry County. His father was standing there at the podium at the time of sentencing. His pastor was standing at the podium at the time of sentencing. And what I wanted to tell him was that we had a veterans court that I could put him into here in Henry County. But what I had to tell him was that we didn't, and that it broke my heart that he was sitting in Henry County Jail and that we didn't have something for him after all he'd done for us and for our country. And so, for all of you, for the both of you, we are here today in front of you, desperate for your help, desperate for your support, so that what we can do is treat people who have been injured in a theater of war to protect us, so that we can treat people who come back into our community who are struggling with the respect that they deserve, with the resources that they need to bring them back, to bring them home. Thank you for your service, and we hope for your support.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it, and we're real proud of you, brother. Now, I want to talk about some numbers real quick because everybody has questions on numbers, and I'm a number guy. So when we talk about the Veterans Court and what it means to the Henry County taxpayer, it costs about $20,000 to put a person in jail for a year. It costs $2,600 to put a person in the Veteran Treatment Court. The second part of this, we found when we put someone in jail in Henry County, they have a 76% chance of going back to jail for committing another crime. And I don't know if you heard what that gentleman said, but their recidivism rate, which means how many people go back to jail, is 0%. So that means every veteran that they put in their program does not go back to jail. What does this mean for the Henry County taxpayer? It means you don't pay for them to go back to jail. It means they go back to work. They pay taxes. They become a productive member of society. So it is very important that we get this done, and I want to talk about what we're actually doing today. Today we are voting on the package to send up to the state to request DATE funds to pay for the Veterans Court. Now, DATE funds stand for Drug Abuse Treatment Education. Now, we've got to send it up to the Capitol, see how much funding we get. Well, we have some friends at the Capitol. Senator Brian Strickland and I have been speaking about this for about 2 years. As soon as the Senator found out that we were voting on this tonight, he called me, and he is going to hand deliver this package to the governor's office. It's that big of a deal. And my very good friend, Judge Trey Pipkins, has been kind enough to take this court on, and I really appreciate your service here. I really do. It means a lot to me. We've got mentors standing in line ready to go. We've got veterans in jail who need help, and there's no way to get them the help in jail. So with that, I am going to, excuse me. Does any other commissioner have anything they would like to add?
Commissioner Clemens, and then
I would just like to say that I had an opportunity to visit with the courts a couple of weeks ago, and it was on drug abuse court. And I would just like to thank our court system, first of all, for the criminal justice initiatives and the reform initiatives that they've implemented. This will be more work, and you're excited about taking it on, and so I want to say we appreciate you for that. I think this is an effective alternative to incarceration, and that's one of the things that we want to make sure that we're reducing the incarceration rate. And also that we're just not reducing the incarceration rate, but we're confronting the issues. A lot of times people go to jail and they go back to jail because we never confront the issue. And I think that this is an awesome opportunity for us as a county to show our support for the veterans. So I thank you for taking the lead on this, and thank the veterans that are here today for their service.
Okay, Commissioner Barn.
Yeah, Mr. Prince, I commend you for taking the lead on this, and it's long overdue, and we just can't do enough for our veterans, and I think this is a good program, and this program's going to change some lives, and that's what's important. Thank you.
Okay, well, my comments are is I salute all of our veterans that are here today. And we thank you for coming all the way from Cobb County as well to just share how we can get a jump start to our Henry County Veterans Court. And I also say that I'm glad to see our judges are here this evening, and to also thank you for all that you do, and not just as we begin this Veterans Court, but what you do in all of our resource courts. I don't know how many of our citizens have actually visited and heard the testimonies of those that have graduated from these courts, for the resource courts, and the impact that it's had on their lives and their families. The impact that it's had on our community has been profound for the graduations that I've personally experienced. So again, Commissioner Prince, we thank you for this opportunity. We salute all of our veterans that are here today. And again, we need to continue to look for ways that we can continue to help those that have served us. And again, I do coin that frame, we want no veteran left behind. So thank you again, and thank you for the time that has been taken this evening. So at this time, we will now accept a motion regarding this resolution to apply for the grant for the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council that will also include the Veterans Treatment Court Program.
Chairman, I ecstatically ask for this to be approved.
We've got a motion.
Second.
And a second. Any further discussions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. And again, thank you, veterans. So at this time, we will now move into the next agenda item that was made an amendment regarding the District 1 appointment to District 1, Mr. Michael Barr to be appointed to the Zoning Advisory Board. So the floor is now open for a motion.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Are there any further questions or comments? All in favor of this appointment? Any opposed? Thank you. We will now move into our next agenda item regarding an ordinance regarding the Georgia adoption of rules for our pools, and we'll ask Ms. Glenda Scott to please come forward for the presentation.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here on behalf of the Henry County Board of Health and the Georgia Department of Public Health seeking adoption of Chapter 511-3-5 Public Swimming Pool Regulations with amendments for counties that have local pool ordinances. Henry County currently operates under a local pool ordinance. The state of Georgia in 2016 adopted statewide pool regulations that are to be utilized by all the counties in the state of Georgia, with the recommended amendment for counties like Henry that have a local ordinance. The recommended changes are included in the submitted pools regulations Exhibit 7. These changes allow for enhanced safety of our public swimming pools as well as protection of our citizens that utilize our public pools. It also allows environmental health to continue to effectively inspect and monitor the public pools in the county of Henry. Chapter 511-3-5 was adopted by the Henry County Board of Health on February 22nd, 2018. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments from the board? Okay, hearing none, the floor is now open for a motion to approve the ordinance amending Chapter 511-3-5 regarding public pool regulations.
Chairman, so moved.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, Ms. Scott.
Thank you.
We'll now move into our next agenda item regarding the splost resolution of resurfacing and the reclamation of West Village Parkway in District 5, and we invite Mr. Rocky Romero for the presentation.
Good evening, Chair and board members. West Village Parkway is a designated splost 4 project. Sealed bids were solicited through the purchasing department per bid number 18-25 for the full depth reclamation and resurfacing of West Village Parkway. 7 sealed bids were received and reviewed. Stewart Brothers was the lowest bidder with a bid of $321,878.65. Staff recommends approval of awarding the bid to Stewart Brothers for the amount stated. Also, this resolution authorized the chair or the county manager to approve change orders less than $50,000. I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? Hearing none, the floor is now open for a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now move into our public hearings for our planning and economic development sector. And the very first the first hearing that we have is AP 1706 in District 5 regarding the denial of a zoning advisory board property located at 40 Pine Crest Court. So, yes.
I need to recuse myself as we clearly see I did the survey on this piece of property.
Okay. You may recuse yourself. All right, well, we'll invite Mr. Gibbs to begin the presentation.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners.
Good evening.
The applicant filed an appeal with the Planning and Zoning Department on December 7, 2017, meeting the 30-day ULDC requirement to file an appeal if aggrieved by the Zoning Advisory Board decision of denial. The applicant is appealing the denial of their variance request from development regulations heard by the Zoning Advisory Board on November 9, 2017. The applicant requested a variance to allow a 1,050 square foot accessory structure to exceed 50% of the heated square footage of the primary dwelling. They also requested a variance to allow an existing frame building that exceeds 50% of the heated square footage of the primary dwelling. And regarding the existing frame building, prior to the complaint received by our code enforcement department, that prompted the need for multiple variances. The existing frame building would be considered legal non-conforming, but the construction of the new accessory structure voided their grandfathered status and required that they comply with current ULDC standards. Staff recommended to the Zoning Advisory Board denial of the applicant's request for a variance from the 50% of the heated square footage of the primary dwelling requirement for accessory structures located on the subject property due to the 7 criteria points in the ULDC not being met and the request to allow the accessory structures exceeding the limit of 50% of the heated square footage of the primary dwelling unit. And based on our tax assessor's record, the heated square footage of the primary dwelling is approximately 1,383 square feet. The Zoning Advisory Board denied the applicant's request to allow the accessory structures, and the resolution before you this evening is to either overturn the Zoning Advisory Board's denial or uphold the Zoning Advisory Board's denial. And at this time, I'll yield the floor to the representing counsel for the applicant.
Okay. We'll invite the applicant to please come forward at this time.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board.
My
name is John Jordan. I represent Terry Bartlett and Miss Mary Bartlett. They are the applicants for this item. I'm with Hecht Walker, PC. The address is 205 Corporate Center Drive, Stockbridge, Georgia, 30281. Mr. and Mrs. Bartlett, again, reside of course, at the 40 Pinecrest Court address in Stockbridge, Georgia, 30281 as well. As part of this presentation, I do have a couple of handouts. I'm technologically handicapped, so if you don't mind, I'd like to pass those out. Thank you. Madam Chair, my clients are seeking a variance again, as Planning and Zoning Director Gibbs had said, from the dimensional requirement in the ULDC for accessory structures that limits the size of an accessory structure to no more than 50% of the square footage, heated square footage of the primary residence. Mr. and Mrs. Bartlett have lived in Henry County for 45 years, and they've actually lived at this residence for more than 38 years. They've raised their kids. Their kids are all grown and out, and they're looking forward to retirement, spending their retirement years. In fact, Mr. Bartlett has just himself retired from full-time service with the Clayton County Police Department, where he served more than 24 years. And he and his wife have been looking forward, again, to retiring and traveling the country and enjoying life. As part of their plans for retirement, they purchased quite an expensive motorhome, a 39-foot motorhome to travel the country. It's their second largest investment next to their home, and naturally they wanted to protect that motorhome, protect that investment from the weather and any damage that might occur. So they had a 25 by 42 foot accessory structure built, and that's approximately 1,050 square feet to house that structure. It is as small as it could possibly be and still get the motorhome inside it. It's a very simple structure. It's a metal structure, has no electricity, no plumbing, no other mechanicals. It's just simply to house that motorhome. Mr. and Mrs. Bartlett did not realize that such a structure needed to have a building permit and had it put up there. They've since applied for a building permit, but have been advised by the county that the county's position is that those structures violate the 50% dimensional requirement, and so that they needed to apply for a variance to comply. The second, and actually the original structure that was built, the one that was legally non-conforming, the county's position is that it did not, is no longer legally non-conforming due to the second structure. That was built more than 30 years ago. It's a wooden frame structure, and it's used to garage 3 classic cars belonging to the family. And unless if the county maintains that it's no longer legal non-conforming, they're in need of a variance for this structure as well. Mr. and Mrs. Bartlett believe their accessory structures comply with the ULDC dimensional standard for accessory buildings. Their house is actually 2,391 square feet of heated, livable, air-conditioned floor space. This includes about 1,000 square feet on the lower level. When it was originally built nearly 40 years ago, it was air-conditioned down there, heated, livable, and in fact, their son used to live down there. It's got its own dedicated bathroom. It is a livable space. With that lower level included, they're well within the dimensional requirement. That would be 50% of the 2,391 square feet would be 1,196, and the larger of the two accessory buildings is 1,050 square feet. The problem here is that both the Zoning Advisory Board and the Community Development Department are not recognizing the lower level of the Bartlett's house as heated floor space. They're deferring completely to the tax assessor's calculation and assessment of heated square footage for tax assessment purposes. The problem is nowhere in the ULDC does it define heated floor space, and nowhere in the ULDC does it define allow the Community Development Department to defer to the tax assessor's calculations for tax purposes. There's absolutely no connection in the ULDC between this ordinance and the tax assessor's calculations. The tax assessor's office, for tax purposes, again, calculates heated square footage in a manner that excludes anything that's any improvements below the ground, subsurface improvements. Regardless of whether they're heated, regardless of whether they're fully livable. That calculation may be good for the tax assessor's office, but it's completely at odds with the everyday common usage of what a normal resident of Henry County would believe would be heated floor space. That would be what's livable and what's got heating and air and fully built out. Even deferring to the tax assessor's calculations, and I would add that it's an internal practice. It's not a regulation that they have to exclude below ground improvements. It's internal. As far as I know, it's even unwritten. But even if you were to abide by that, the tax assessor's office and their calculations is omitting all of the lower level, regardless of whether it's completely underground. In your packet that you have, I've got pictures of the lower level, which you'll see, one, have vents in the ceiling showing that it is completely air conditioned and heated. And it also shows that most of that lower level is actually above ground. In fact, it's got a door that leads out to the backyard from the lower level. It's carpeted. Right now, the son used to live there, but right now it's a large house for a retired couple. Their sons are no longer there, so there's storage there, but it is livable space. We believe that the county's calculation of heated floor space for the dimensional standard at issue is unconstitutionally arbitrary. Likewise, without a definition of what does or does not constitute heated floor space for such purposes, we also believe that the county ordinance and the dimensional limitation itself is unconstitutionally vague. To ignore the literal definition of what constitutes heated floor space in favor of a technical, unwritten assessor practice without any basis under the ULDC or the Georgia Code is a violation of due process. And just for the record, we've filed our constitutional notice that more fully explains our constitutional concerns with this. That being said, our clients have submitted this variance application preferring not to attack the constitutionality of the ordinance as a whole in this dimensional standard, but simply to seek a variance under the standard as interpreted by the county. They've lived their whole life getting along with their neighbors, been active in the community, don't want to, cause much of a stir. They just want to be able to keep their storage or their accessory buildings. So they're going the route of least resistance and requesting a variance for these storage spaces. We believe that failure to grant the variance is requested under some of the standards for a variance would unreasonably and arbitrarily deprive Mr. and Mrs. Bartlett of their rights that are commonly enjoyed by other property owners who just happen to have their whole structure above ground, regardless of whether or not the Bartlett's structure has livable space below ground. And namely, that right would be to allow for larger accessory structures on properties with the same amount of heated square footage. We do not believe that the need for this variance was created by Mr. and Mrs. Bartlett, but it's actually a result of the county's interpretation of the ordinance and the dimensional standards at issue based on an internal, unwritten, unsupported definition as to what constitutes heated floor space. Additionally, both accessory structures are as small as they can be to fit the motorhome and vehicles, and the variances being sought are the least amount of relief needed to comply with the county's interpretation of this dimensional standard. We believe that the variance request being sought today complies with the standards and satisfies the standards for such relief under the ULDC, and my clients respectfully request this court's granting of relief to allow them to maintain the accessory structures to protect their second largest investment in a motorhome, as well as the structure that's been there for over 30 years that houses 3 classic cars. And with that, if Mr. or Mrs. Bartlett have anything to say, I'd like to yield the floor to them.
Good afternoon. My name is Terry Bartlett, and I'd like to say that the building that I had built was specifically to park that motorhome in. It's a monster in itself, and I try to keep everything quiet. I mean, I don't like any noises because I live there and I don't want them, and I know the neighbors don't, and I just try to do what I'm supposed to do. We've worked all of our lives to have something. And it's got to a point where we do have a little money that we can do things with. And we like to travel. I mean, I took the motorhome to Fairbanks, Alaska. That was one trip we went on. And we just enjoy camping. And you have to have somewhere to keep it stored to keep sun and rain from destroying it. That's the worst things on a camper is sun and rain. I've had 3 or 4 campers in my life, and this is the biggest one I've ever had. When I bought it, that's what I wanted, and I enjoy the heck out of it. A lot of times we'll take it up the mountains, and I'll leave it up there 2 or 3 weeks at a time. So we go back and forth. And I try to get along with all the neighbors. Personally, I don't know that many of the neighbors. I speak to them when we're outside. That's about it. We don't socialize with none of them, with none of the neighbors. There's probably 4 people. I think 4 people on my street, on both sides of me. Before I built it, I talked to them. They said, we have no problem at all. The 2 on both sides of me, the one straight across the street from me, well, 2 across the street from me, we don't have no problem at all. I mean, I stay to myself. I guess you may say I'm unsociable, but I just don't like to deal with people. I mean, at work I dealt with people all the time, and I just could not. I just didn't want to bother with nobody. Still don't. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Well, thank you. We've heard from the applicants, and at this time, are there any questions or comments from the board before we enter into the public hearing aspect? Okay, at this time, you may be seated, and we'll now begin the public hearing aspect of this. So those wishing to speak in opposition of this zoning matter, we'll ask that you please come forward. There will be a total of 10 minutes for the whole group to speak. And then likewise, anyone wishing to speak in favor will be granted likewise 10 minutes to speak. So if you'll be seated, and we'll allow anyone that wishes to come to speak in opposition to begin. So thank you, sir. And as you come, please state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Carl Hutchison. We live at 35 Pinecrest Drive, directly behind the Bartletts. And I've had water problems ever since I've been living there. So I've brought in about I guess I would say close to 40 pickup truck loads of dirt to try to keep this problem from happening. I'd like to show you in 2007, we had the county come out and they put in a culvert for us behind. It's supposed to be a 10-foot easement.
On the Bartlett side, not ours.
And they didn't want a ditch in front of their house on that street, so the builder let them put a ditch behind. Well, the people were filling up the ditches, and so I started having problems, so we called the county, and the county said, yeah, we'll take care of that. We'll put a culvert in there. And that takes up, you can see the baseline where the trees are, and it's on my property, the trees are. And then you see that, and then it's about a couple of feet probably past going up toward their yard where the easement's supposed to be. I'm not a county planner, I'm not anything, so I don't know, but I do know if you put a bunch of junk and just debris all over your yard, and then you got buildings on top of that, that it will not let the water go into the ground. And I've got pictures.
Sir, back to the picture that they put up, that's not an accurate picture of the house here. This picture they put up, this green space is their neighbor's property, and we know those neighbors, and this green part here, they've let all that stay up for all these many years to block out their junk. Just thought I'd throw that in. Okay, I've got these pictures. These were taken in November the 3rd. They've not made any attempt to even move any of this debris.
Which is going on my property.
It's just everywhere. The water comes down, it hits all this corrugated aluminum.
All that is concrete.
Way back there is concrete that's reinforced steel. These people have two strong, big sons that have gotten back there with this small dozer or whatever equipment to move this stuff. And they, I guess they still live close by, but they got it in there. So I don't know why they can't get it out. But the water comes down, it's up higher. The next house is up higher, and the water comes down. So when we bought the house, the first thing I did was I noticed that there was so much water back there, and I got a wheelbarrow and a shovel, and I started digging. And that worked for a while until neighbors started filling the ditch in. And so when the flooding department came in with Henry County, I went up to the courthouse and I did research. Can you hear me? Yeah. I did research, and I found out that there was a 10-foot easement back there. And Henry County came in, and they spent, I think it's $4,700 to dig out and to put that culvert in. Now, I want you to continue to look at these pictures, because I was on a ladder when I took this, and I was on my property. I was not on these people's property. I was on my property. So this is what we're looking at. You see all the concrete that they built, and it comes down, and then it curves down towards our property again. And this is the back side of that building. There's a big storage building behind that building. They also have an in-ground swimming pool. This actually piece of junk has fallen apart. I've got an updated picture of that, but I didn't get the ladder out today. More of this, more of this, more of this. What we're looking at there is you can see the curve. That's their next door neighbors. You can see the curve of the property coming down. And again, they brought in these concrete, steel reinforced concrete. They're everywhere. They've lined the fence line of the neighbors with it. They put it everywhere. And again, you see the curvature of the property coming down. And then again, junk. And then there's another view of that, because I can't get all of it. If you could see it, you just wouldn't believe it. Now here, let's see, where's it at? Sorry, I've got to go back.
My only option was
Okay.
to let these trees
Here.
grow up and
I mean-
hide all this mess.
I mean, you can even see the way that their sons were out there painting, and I guess they cleaned out their paintbrushes. This has looked like this for years.
We've been there 35 years.
Oh, we've been there 35 years. We're about the same age that they are. And what is going to happen is that we're going to have to spend a lot of money. We're going to have to bring in dirt. We're going to have to fight this because we have to fight their water. Even though they have a 10-foot easement, even though there's a big culvert there put in by Henry County, and you know, you can't have all this solid stuff. They put in driveways everywhere. They've never got a permit for anything. The first building that has already been approved last time in November, it started out as a big, tall pole barn. And then one day we came back in and they had closed it in. And then we said, okay, I guess we can live with that. And then they added on to it. And then, you know, they just spread concrete everywhere. And I don't know where they get this stuff. This must be highway construction debris because it's like commercial reinforced huge concrete. Now right here, this right here, some of this is on our property, not the 10-foot easement, on our personal property.
They got it butted up against the trees.
Because the poles are still there and the flags are still there. They don't care. And then they built, I'll show it to you. This, I don't know if you can see it. You can't really see it that well, but they elevated the ground way, way up. And they must have taken that commercial concrete reinforced long things and put it in the bottom. But all of a sudden, you just looked out there and there was this incredible building.
It looks like an industrial park.
My problem is that it's like a junkyard back there, and not only, it's not that. We have to do something about the water. I had planted red tip patina, and we had let those grow up, but vines have crept in, and then because the ditch is coming in and the water, it is on our side of the red tip patina. The red tip patina were planted 4 foot in, and what happens now is that they're all dying and they don't have the root system because the ditch is coming in on the other side of it. Oh, and when those patina were little, they were they sprayed herbicide on their side of their property. So more pictures, more pictures. I wish you could see that. It's dark. That was the elevation. These were taken just today. We didn't get the ladder out. These were taken today. And we've taken 5 pictures today. We just looked down, and there's whatever that is. It's iron, and actually some of that is on our property. And then more, and you can see where this tractor thing has fallen apart because the other picture, it wasn't. Again, right here, our next door neighbor, he's kind of the guy that doesn't worry about his property too much, but we really like him, and he's been there for years. But you can see this fence is not very old, and the water is working on his fence too. You can see right here the water because of all this mess here. We took these today, and more of that. And I've got, maybe you can see better. Maybe you can see it better from the picture. You see, they built that building up, way up.
And thank you, ma'am. We're out of time, so thank you very much. But if there is anyone else that is wishing to just state or stand to voice your state of opposition, we're out of time, sir. So we'll move to the next one. Would you please stand if there is anyone else? Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we'll now grant 10 minutes to anyone wishing to speak in favor of this request. Again, anyone wishing to speak in favor?
Madam Chair, if I may, just add a few more remarks in favor and in response. I appreciate the opposition's concern. I would like to say, though, that there is a larger water problem that's going on. It actually affects the Bartlett's property just the same. It started when the road was repaved in front of them. The accessory structures are doing nothing to aggravate that or to cause a water problem. It's completely separate. And as far as the concerns about metal being on the ground and the aesthetics of the yard, that also is irrelevant to the matter at hand. What we're looking for today actually could help aesthetically benefit the property. Instead of having 3 classic cars just thrown out there in the back and a huge 39-foot motor home just out in the back or even parked in the front yard, we're looking to enclose them. And they'll be, the vehicles be protected and the property will look better. So I would like to separate those two things with the water and the accessory building and the concerns about what's on the ground. The other thing I'd like to say is in the staff report it mentioned that there were I think many people in opposition. The same opposition tonight was at the Zoning Advisory Board, and that was the only opposition that I was aware of. And there was also a neighbor across the street, Carol Cooley, who spoke in favor of the variance. So I did want to raise that as well. Other than that, that's what I wanted to add. Mr. Bartlett, if he has anything, I'd like to defer to him.
My yard sits halfway between hers and the people next door to her. One's next door to her's got a fence. It's falling down. It's been that way for 4 or 5 years. I don't care. I put some blocks up next to it where they keep them from falling. Yes, I did. And I've got a bunch of blocks in my yard. I'm trying to get out of there. They were given to me, and I only had so much time to get them out. I want to take them to the mountains. I'm building a wall up there, so most of them is going to go up there. It's just a matter of getting them out. Because I work, my son works, both my son works. Don't have a whole lot of time, and I've already got rid of a bunch of the blocks out from back there. I do have 2 tractors. I got property up in the mountains that I have to go up and cut grass. I have to keep a tractor. I have no way to keep them up there. So I use them to cut grass up there in the mountains. And I've had that property up there 30 years. I've never built a house on it, but I have to go up and cut the grass to keep it from overgrowing. And I've got blocks, like they're actually cement blocks, but they're made like, they actually are cross ties, but they're concrete. I've got several across my yard, stopping the water from coming off the street, just running freely down through there. And my neighbor right next door to me, she was in favor of me putting these blocks up next to her fence to keep water from washing out all my soil and make her yard's the same, just as bad as mine. When it rains, you can't go back there. My house is, some of the concrete I poured, when I get out of the car, and it's rained just a little bit, you just soak up in water. I've tried to stop the water. I've contacted the county road department, and they said, they don't do nothing. I've called them several times, and they don't want to do nothing. When the road was originally there, it was like a V shape, and they came back and paved it, and it's got a crown that all the water runs down onto my property. It's never had it's had a drain, a small valley for the water to run through. That's fine. I want them to do it. I begged them to do it. They won't do nothing. I mean, I wish I could stop the water. I can't. If the county would come out and dig out the ditches, it doesn't have to be that deep. I don't care how deep they dig them. I mean, I did everything I can to stop the water. I've got on the side of the building, yes, it's concrete, but at the end of it, I've got 3 bales of hay to slow the water down. Most of the water goes to my left, which is a drain ditch between my house and my neighbor. And the water runs down and goes through that culvert. The county came out about 10 years ago and put that culvert in because she was complaining so much. Her house originally, the water would just come back there and run across her yard, and they brought loads of dirt in and filled in the natural drain of her property. That's where the water drained, across the back of her property and down beside her house. That was a natural drain of that location. There's houses over here that's way up here. I'm in the middle and she's on the lower side. I can't do anything with water. I wish I could. I mean, I've had water problems ever since I bought the house. And, I wish the county would come fix the culvert in the front, put a drain in there or just clean out the drains. And I've got a couple of implements for my tractors. And I'm not going to deny it. I mean, I got 4 or 5 implements for my tractor. I got a bush hog, I got a finishing mower, got a couple of finishing mowers, and I got a boat back there, which I try to keep everything. I don't want nothing seen from the street. And the only thing you can see from her yard is they planted big trees right on the property line. There is no drain ditch there. There's never been a drain ditch there. Never. Since I own the house. I bought the house brand new. There's never been. The county wanted to put a drain in that 10-foot easement. I said, fine, I don't care. Do what you got to do. I mean, I've tried to work with the county however I could. And my yard is not coated like she says, but I mean, I live there. I try to keep all the trash picked up out of the yard. I try to make the house presentable in the front. Yes, my wife's got flower pots out there. I ain't gonna deny that because she does. She likes to plant flowers in the summer. But I don't want nothing to be seen from the street. Nothing. I mean, I don't even want to park a tractor or anything up that way. I don't. Because you know yourself, somebody sitting inside the road, they're going to take it. And I don't want that. And I've had the tractors I've had one for over 20 years. And I've had the other one 15, 16 years. They've always been back there. She's never said nothing to me. Nothing. She's never said anything. She's never complained about water. She's never complained about anything to me. Nothing. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor for the remaining 57 seconds? Calling again, anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Thank you. Well, this concludes our public hearing at this moment, so we'll ask the applicant and Mr. Gibbs to return to address any questions from the board. So at this time, are there any questions from the board? Commissioner Wilson.
According to Mr. Jordan's presentation, the applicant has a basement, a finished basement of 1,008 square feet.
Could you say that one more time, Commissioner Wilson? I could barely hear you.
It says they had a finished basement of 1,008 square feet, which is not included on the heated square foot of the home.
The heated square footage of homes in the county are based on the approved plans that go through our plan review. And that is based on an engineered site plan that's submitted through our building department. Per my conversations with the building department, our records do not show any proper permitting for that finish of the basement, similar to the accessory structure that was built without proper building permitting.
Right, so if they applied for proper building permits this time, could that be included as heated square feet?
Based on what I understand, they will not unless there are certain criteria that they actually comply with. And so the best department to actually answer that would be the building department to see if they'll count that as heated square footage. As I understand right now, there is no HVAC in the basement, so it doesn't technically count as heated. That's my general understanding on a conversation I had probably a few months ago.
Okay, thank you.
All right, other questions from the board? Okay, hearing none, the floor is now open for a motion.
Okay. First, I want to say, John, that's the attorney's name?
Yes.
If I ever need representation, I will be giving you a call. Just want to say that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
If this resolution was approved, it would set a terrible precedent countywide. So, based on the recommendations of the PNC, I'm going to move to deny.
Can I say something?
Okay, no, sir, we are now, we've addressed the question, so we have a motion to deny.
A second.
There's a second. Any other further questions or comments from the board? All in favor to deny? Thank you. The public hearing moves us forward as a denial. So at this time, we'll now move to our next planning and zoning issue. We'll ask Commissioner Prince to return. There we go. We'll now move into public hearing RZ 1802 regarding property at 500 Pulliam Road in District 2. So we'll ask Mr. Gibbs to proceed with the presentation.
Thank you, Chair. The applicant is requesting a zoning reversion from the current R3 single-family residence zoning to the RA zoning district, which is residential agricultural. At the time of the application deadline for the March 8th Zoning Advisory Board hearing, which was the first Tuesday of February this year, the respective application on file and the applicant communicated their initial intent to utilize the reverted property as a farm-to-table event venue. At that time, staff advised the applicant of the code requirement for a conditional use permit to be heard by the Zoning Advisory Board in order to use the property as a county-regulated event facility. The applicant was also advised on the limitations regarding event facilities in the RA zoning district. As with any applicant, past and present, after the staff report was completed and staff met our legal requirements per the zoning procedures law, the applicant formally notified staff by email on March 1st, 2018, that they would like to postpone their conditional use permit request for an event facility. Additional communication from the applicant confirmed that they wish to continue with their reversion request from R3 to RA in order to meet the county land use requirement for agriculture. The only zoning district that permits agriculture is RA. And if you would notice on the overhead, the exhibit to the top left, I highlighted the portion of our land use table that confirms the RA zoning district being the only zoning that allows the agricultural use. The property consists of approximately 18.83 acres, of which a small portion is in floodplain. And exhibit to the top right, there's a small portion to the northeast corner of the property that's shaded kind of blue-green. That is the FEMA confirmed flood area. This small portion does not prevent other portions of the property from being planted in selected crop. With that said, it has been communicated to staff that the current intent of the applicant is to pursue agritourism through the state of Georgia. Therefore, technically, the zoning matter at hand this evening addresses the land use that the ULDC regulates, which is agriculture, not an event facility. In order to comply with the state regulations for agritourism, the applicant will be required to plant and establish an acceptable crop. Due to the fact that this request is, again, technically a reversion to our base zoning district, and that the land use our code regulates related to the applicant's request is, again, agriculture. Staff objectively recommended approval to the Zoning Advisory Board, who in turn has recommended denial to the Board of Commissioners. If the Board of Commissioners so chooses this evening to approve the applicant's request, I recommend the following condition be added to your approval, and that is, a planted buffer shall be required along each property line having no existing vegetation, abutting residential zoning consisting of a row of Leland cypress planted at a minimum of 6 feet in height and 15 feet apart, or a mixture of the following: 1 canopy tree, 1 evergreen, 1 understory tree, and shrubs per ULDC standards. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Okay, are there any questions or comments? Is the applicant here as well?
So I have a question.
Okay, Commissioner
for you.
Clemens.
Thank you, Chair. So the event facility use is completely off the table now?
Yes, per our regulations, if they were to pursue an event facility through the county, it requires a conditional use per our current code. That conditional use takes place through a hearing with our zoning advisory board, and there are limitations. They would be limited to 5 per year, 1 per month, per our current regulations in our ULDC.
And does the applicant know that if they do any event facilities, that they have to come back before the board for conditional use?
If they choose to pursue an event facility through county regulations, that would be the requirement.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the board before we begin the public hearing? At this time, we will now begin the public hearing for this request for rezoning. So anyone wishing to speak in opposition will be given 10 minutes, and likewise, anyone wishing to speak in favor will be given 10 minutes. So at this time, anyone wishing to speak in opposition, will you please come forward now? And a total of 10 minutes will be given to all who wish to speak. Thank you. If you would state your name and address, please, for the record.
My name is Frank Austin. I'm at 273 Rocky Creek Road, Hampton. I'll be very brief tonight. It seems he's withdrew the original request out. I didn't see it on paper anywhere where it said that it would be no event facility. The paperwork that was posted online still shows the zoning request as for RA zoning to facilitate putting an event facility on the property. Approval of the RA zoning tonight with this paperwork in place would essentially constitute a vote by this board to say, okay, this usage of this property is approved. Therefore, we will have no way to reject a conditional use at a later date because we have essentially approved it tonight. Put an event facility on there just briefly. This circle I've drawn here from the front of the barn there represents 1,000 foot according to the tax assessor's map on his website and his drawing machine. It puts 42 existing homes within 1,000 foot of any type of event facility that would be put on by the barn there at this property, which is entirely too close to any kind of outside event facility. Sorry, my papers won't stick together. Originally, There was a conditional use granted for this property for a church or a place of worship. One of the conditions on that conditional use was that the open space located on the east side of the barn, identified as a flood limit area of the boundaries, which I think that was probably on the other map there that you can probably see here. Okay, the green shaded area over here should remain undisturbed. All right, that greatly reduces any farming area you would have on this 18 acres. By my estimates, it probably takes, what, 6, 7 acres off of it. We've got a septic tank or septic line that runs approximately down through here. How can we farm over the top of an existing sewage line? Just a question. Maybe you can, I don't know. I wouldn't think it would be a good idea. Anyway, I object to this rezoning of this piece of property too close to other folks' homes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jean Kessinger. I live at 323 Rocky Creek Road. It's nice to see you this evening.
Good evening.
I'm going to put up several pictures just so that you clearly understand why this does not need to be rezoned. This is a residential area. These are people with families and children. The applicant's application said farm to table. I understand about farming quite well. And farm to table means a business, a for-profit business, a commercial business. So your first picture depicts a driveway. That driveway is that hook that you see on the map going back. Now, that goes right past that man's garage and house. Thank you. The next picture shows you the offset of where the barn is in relationship to family dwellings. That family has a backyard. I'm sure children play in it, but they won't be playing in it when there's farm-to-table people coming over. Southern Belle has agritourism, and they do quite well, and the reason they get along with their neighbors is they're very strict and very mindful and respectful of their neighbors. The way the code is written right now, 10, 11 o'clock on a Sunday night, you can still have people. This next picture, it's kind of hard to see, but I'll point to it. That is the subdivision directly behind the barn. All of these are homes, the backside of homes that you can clearly see through the trees. Right there is the property, and there is a floodplain there. Now, you have pesticides, insecticides, and what have you with farming in a floodplain that is going to go down and feed right into our water reservoirs. This is a residential area. It needs to remain so. It does not need to be RA. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Call it again. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Thank you. We will now allow 10 minutes for anyone wishing to speak in favor of this rezoning request. Again, thank you. Would you please state your name and address for the records, please?
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Aaron Castellanos. I reside at 3222 Bayview Drive in Jonesboro, Georgia. The subject property we've been talking about, and they're saying,
Could you speak into the microphone? I know you're trying
Yes,
to get
ma'am.
your pictures together as well.
It's my legal right to be able to plant plants in my own property. As far as this piece here that they were talking about, floodplain, we're actually planting our vineyard right here. And these 3 areas right here will be planted with vegetables and fruit. This other side, on this side, will be fruit-bearing trees as well as nut trees. And they will be well away from the floodplain, number 1. Number 2, the sewer pipe that's being mentioned is not on this side of my property. You can actually see that line that goes across there. That's the sewer pipe. It's on the far end. So technically the city or county or who have you has put a sewer pipe in my floodplain. That wasn't something that I did. But we will be planting on this side right here. We'll be planting right behind here. And as far as the concern of it being pesticides and whatnot, we're going to be completely organic. We're going to be using your basic materials to maintain as fresh a possibility as product as possible for our clients. I also wanted to make mention that we've been serving this community for a little over 13 years, and we've served over 200,000 people in this community, and we wanted this to continue to do the same thing. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Calling in.
My name's Don Dunlap. I'm at 192 Ashley Drive in McDonough. I really didn't know this was happening this evening until I looked at the agenda and saw it. I had a couple folks coming to observe, and I saw that Aaron and Sheena were on the agenda. I'm a customer of them. I'm one of those couple 100,000 people that they've served. But it's not just as a vendor. They're good folks. And I think just like Jake and Jennifer Carter, I think you'll find that Aaron and Sheena are strict, mindful, and respectful. They're really valuable members of our community in a variety of different ways, what they do to help people that are disadvantaged, what they do as business people in the community. And I would hope that we would accept their application with the conditions set forward by the staff. And I'd say it would be good to do so that, number 1, in the packet it says that being zoned R3 may be a map error. It should have been RA to start with. Their request complies with the future land use map designation of low-density residential. Approval of the requested rezoning should have minimal effects as the property is located in an area that is currently developed with low-density residential and residential agricultural developments. It says there should be minimal impact on adjacent property owners. Their request to revert the property back to its original zoning designation would further the policies of the Henry County City's Joint Comprehensive Plan. So their application would actually get us more toward where we want to be as a community. It says the subject property has been developed as it is presently zoned and no additional development is proposed. And of course, at the end, it says that the staff, and I would respectfully say that Mr. Gibbs and his staff are very knowledgeable and expert. They recommend approval of the applicant's request. And as just a citizen, I would hope that we do the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Calling again. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Well, thank you. This concludes our public hearing for this zoning matter. We ask Mr. Gibbs and the applicant to come forward with any questions or comments from the board. Okay, Commissioner Clemens.
Patrick, I think this is a question for you in reference to the rezoning request application. It's numbered page 6 of the rezoning application, where it says for the purpose of.
If the purpose stated concerns the board, you could certainly rezone the property and do a condition that prohibits whatever use you're concerned about. You could make that a condition to the rezoning.
Okay.
So you could approve a rezoning from R3 to RA and impose a condition that prohibits whatever of those uses you object to.
Okay, and is that two different uses there?
I don't know what they meant when they wrote event venue with kitchen, farm to table. I don't know what that means any more than anybody else does. But
Yeah, but we're okay.
if you're concerned about an event venue, then you could certainly condition that. If you're concerned about a farm to table restaurant or service facility, you could certainly restrict and prohibit that.
But that wouldn't be applicable in RA zoning, a commercial use, would it? Or would it?
An event venue could, with a conditional use, go in. I mean, I think that's what Dante was saying. You would be providing the appropriate zoning for someone to come back later. I don't know, again, I don't know what this means. I don't know what that phrase means.
So I just, if it's okay if we add that it's R3 to RA with, and that's why I asked if the applicant know that they would need a conditional use under the RA. So because it says event venue with kitchen, farm to table, I would want to make sure that it says R3 to RA with the condition, with that they have to come back for a conditional use to get an event for the event facility. I mean, that's kind of, it's out there already. I don't know that we have to put it in there. If we don't have to put it in there, then that's fine.
That's regulated by UODC, so in the event that they wanted to pursue an event facility through county regulations, that will be required.
So okay. And we're not looking at what business they have out here tonight. We're just looking at the
land
zoning.
use.
Right, okay.
Well, that would certainly, so it's clear in the RA zoning district, you have the right to operate a farm.
Correct.
So they could certainly grow whatever crops and sell those crops.
Right.
And they're allowed to do some accessory selling on the farm itself, not opening great big stores. But if the concern is any commercial use whatsoever, I think a farm by its nature is a commercial use.
Correct.
So.
Okay, and then with the accessories, additional accessories, we don't have anything in there for additional accessories that are added to the property, so that if they decided that they wanted to build, and it is a barn, so would it just go under the RA accessories? They would just have to come back for a permit for that?
Are you saying an accessory like a pole barn of some sort, or an accessory like, can you give me a little bit more?
If they wanted, okay, it is my understanding that he wants to grow organic products for his customers, which is a great thing. But if he needs additional structures, then what codes would those fall up under as far as whether it's going to be, how the structures would be? Is it going to fall up under RA? Is it going to fall up under commercial? I'm concerned about what it looks like in this neighborhood.
It would fall under RA. RA allows certain types and places for accessory structures to go. If what you're looking for are...
Prohibit what just happened in District 5 with somebody just building something that looks crazy in somebody else's backyard.
If they were to decide to build a structure, it would have to go through our planning review department and meet all of our development code requirements. If it's a pole barn, that is a type of structure that's synonymous with an agricultural type of activity.
So I would like to make sure that, I mean, and so we don't have any types of conditions to put on that pole barn, that it looks good in the neighborhood.
Generally, there aren't any. If that's what you want,
Yeah.
then you would have to impose those conditions. As a general rule,
So I would want to oppose a condition that if they wanted to build it, that they would have to come back for a prior approval of what it looks like, a plan approval of what the new structures would look like on the property.
So when you say when it looks like, what are you saying in context? Because we don't really have specific architectural design standards for agricultural uses. We have overlay districts, we have...
So let me just ask the applicant, would you have an issue with if you decided to build something on the property that it has to come back to the board or get an approval from our department to see what it looks like?
There'd be no reason for it, and we don't plan on adding anything to the building. There's plenty of space for us.
Okay. But you might want to, just.
Lord willing.
Okay.
All right, one question I have, County Attorney, will you elaborate on, during the zoning and advisory board meeting, it was listed as an event center, and since that time and staff approval, we received a recent notice that this is not an event center. So will you please elaborate and clarify, again, the authority that we have tonight without violating any issues or regulations?
Well, whether someone wants it to be an event center or not, it can't be until they get a conditional use. If if you want to be clear about that, simply impose a condition that says that there will be no event center operated on the property without an appropriate conditional use, and that may help appease concern.
Yeah, because the question was that it was publicized one way and then
And
it's
that
different. So I just
doesn't
wanted to
matter.
clarify that
There's
that
no
is
real-
not an issue. So I
there's
just
no
wanted
real
you to
issue.
clarify that. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? Commissioner Prince?
I mean, I would caution the esteemed colleague from the second district there. If we put architectural standards on a pole barn, we need to have them written down. It would be very difficult to enforce architectural standards on a pole barn without something in writing, because then it becomes subjective, and it would be hard to enforce. So when we do architectural standards, we have a book that goes over everything, so it would be hard to even design without knowing what we're trying to do. And I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I just don't know how to enforce that.
That's what we have the attorney for.
I would suggest the only way to do it without, because I'm sure if Mr. Gibbs is going to sit down and formulate those, he's going to need some time and resources to do that. He can't do it tonight. My recommendation would be impose a condition that simply prohibits any new structures, period. And that way, if they want to add new structures, they would have to file a modification of the zoning, come back before the board, present to you what those structures will be. And there would be an opportunity at that time for staff to look at whatever architectural elements would need to be imposed.
Yeah, that works.
And if the applicant doesn't intend to put any new structures up, at this point, you wouldn't be holding them back from any immediate plans. It will add a substantial time and expense element when they go to do that. If this property does well, they may need to add a barn or a pole barn or something, and it would obviously create some time and expense associated with it. But that's the only way that I can think of that you can solve that problem today.
Okay, so if they're seeking state zoning and they go agritourism, would any of that still apply?
We do not regulate the state agritourism. That is strictly a state program that a nice lady named Cindy, I think her last name is Norton, she's the only person in the state that goes out and confirms agritourism sites. We have no jurisdiction with state regulations, so if they decide to go that, it will be regulated by the state of Georgia, not our ULDC.
So this would go away as far as the structures?
It will be if they were to pursue an event facility or a structure per our regulations. If they go agritourism, they have to comply with what the state allows. We do not supersede the state, and we do not have agritourism that's more restrictive, or agritourism code that's more restrictive. So hopefully
we govern structures.
Right.
The state can't override our zoning on structures.
Okay, that's my question.
And
So
we could impose limitations on uses. The state can't override us on those limitation of uses either.
Structures, yes. Agritourism.
Well, agritourism it's agriculture as far as we're concerned. We don't have a specific agritourism.
Okay.
If they have those other things that go along with it, that falls under agriculture.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, the floor is now open for a motion.
Move to approve the R3 to RA zoning.
Do you want to add those?
I want to add the conditions.
I would suggest a condition prohibiting event centers absent the appropriate conditional use, and a condition.
No, just the structures is what I'm concerned about.
Okay, just a condition prohibiting new structures on the property, period, and they would have to come back to you to modify that condition.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. We've heard the motion with conditions. Is there a second?
Not a second, but I got a question.
Okay, we need a second, and then we'll get into discussion. Okay, we have a second, and then, go ahead, Commissioner Wilson.
So, limit that you want to put a condition without new buildings, so you're really saying they really can't put a home on there if they want to build a house?
Okay, that's fine. I mean, if you don't support it, then that's fine. I can redo the.
No, we're just, okay, the question
Yeah, I mean, if we
again.
limit structures on but it's RA, and there's RA property all over the county that people put homes on every day.
Okay.
They have no restrictions on those properties for homes.
Okay,
So that's
fine.
I'd hate for them to have to come back.
Let me modify the request,
Okay, well, we've heard
Before you modify it,
Yeah.
just need clarification. clarification.
Yes, okay.
Is this the same property in which they were doing the event center?
No.
This isn't?
This is not Rocky Creek
Oh,
Wedding
okay, I
Venue.
heard Rocky Creek a couple of times.
This is not. This is a whole different property.
Okay.
Okay, so we've heard a motion and a second, and then, of course, you want to.
Yeah, so let me first of all
kind of
say
restate the motion.
Yeah, to the
okay.
property owner, thank you
Another
for
motion.
understanding that I just want to make sure that whatever happens is nice. And I think that being a citizen in this county, I think that you'll do that. I've talked to you over and over about what you want to do on this property.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I appreciate that. I wanted to assure the homeowners, again, that I want to protect what comes around them. So.
I would like to do the same.
I agree. So I make the motion to approve. You have something to say, Dante?
Quick question. Are you motioning to approve with staff recommended conditions?
Yes. Staff recommended conditions for R3 to RA with the staff recommended conditions in it.
Okay, so we've got the motion, basically to R3 to RA with staff recommendations. Okay, so we've got a motion. Is there now a second?
Second.
A second. Any further questions or comments from the board? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll now move into our next public hearing, RZ 1727 in District 4 regarding property located at 2172 Highway 155 North, requesting a rezoning from C1 to C3. So we expect Mr. Jordan Rudisell to make the presentation.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners.
Good evening.
The request before you tonight is a request for rezoning from the existing C1 to a proposed C3 for the purpose of a plumbing service business. And so the location map is before you on the overhead. To get you some context, this road is 155, this is Eastlake, and the subject property is just north of the intersection on the east side of Highway 155. Displayed now is the zoning map that shows the property hatched in green. It's C1. There is C1 in the area, there is C2 in the area, there is C3 in the area. The future land use map designates the subject property for commercial land uses. And so the future land use map supports the applicant's request for C3. We have been advised by the county DOT that Highway 155 is slated for widening at some point, and so they recommended that there be a condition that an additional 10 feet of right-of-way be protected along the frontage of the subject property. So we included that in our recommendation. The Zoning Advisory Board heard the request on January the 11th and recommended an additional condition that would state that the C3 use would be limited to a plumbing and septic service. So the Zoning Advisory Board does recommend conditions for the approval, and I would be pleased to answer any questions.
Okay. Are there any questions? Is the applicant here as well? Okay, are there any questions from the board?
Good evening. I have no questions.
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right. Well, this is a public hearing, so we will begin the public hearing segment again for this zoning, and those wishing to speak in opposition will be granted a total of 10 minutes, and those wishing to speak in favor will be granted 10 minutes as well. So at this time, we'll call for anyone wishing to speak in opposition to please come forward. Thank you. If you would state your name and address for the record.
1652 Highway 155 North. The whole corner up there on 155 in East Lake is getting so congested right now. It's pathetic. We've got more construction going on there than you can hardly move around there now. I think we don't need anything else, especially a C3 up there. Just, I'm asking you to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Calling again, anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? We will now open the floor for those wishing to speak in favor. Will you please come forward at this time? Calling again, anyone wishing to speak in favor? Seeing none, we will there conclude the public hearing for this zoning matter, and we'll now again ask the applicant to come forward to address any questions or comments from the board. So at this time, are there any questions or comments from the board? Okay, hearing none, seeing none. We'll now open the floor for a motion.
Chair, I'm going to make a motion to approve this. This is already a commercial site, and I'm going to go with the two conditions that the Zoning Advisory Board recommended. Are you okay with those conditions?
I'm sorry?
Are you okay with the two conditions?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. Then I'm recommending approval with two conditions as stated.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Any further questions or comments from the board? All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now move into our next public hearing regarding mcmdp 1704 regarding the Green Valley Golf Club of Locust Grove requesting a modification to the master development plan for the property known as Eagles Brook Country Club in District 2. So we'll now ask Mr. Jordan Rudisell to actually make the presentation this evening.
Thank you, Chair Wood. Commissioners. The request before you tonight, just for the sake of clarity, has been modified somewhat. The original request was for 33 acres, and that request has been reduced. And so before you on the overhead is an aerial shot of the location. It shows 20 plus or minus acres around the clubhouse, and it shows 4 plus or minus acres around the maintenance shed. And the difference, what has been removed from the request, is in the middle. And these are the driving ranges that are not a part of the request anymore for modification. And this location map may show it more clearly that this part in the middle has been removed. The area of Eagles Brook is Zone PD, which is a planned development. And the planned development is composed of different pods. At this juncture, the subject property is part of a golf course pod. It's used for a clubhouse, it's used for maintenance and so forth. And the request is to change that designation by modifying the scheme from golf to commercial. And there's precedence in the area. There are other commercial pods that are part of this planned development. So it's not unusual, it's not out of character for the area. The applicant has specified that they would wish to be allowed to develop in a manner consistent with a C2, which is a general commercial zoning. Staff has no objection to the applicant's request. The only reservation that we would have is that this area around the clubhouse, it would be better in our estimation if it could transition down in intensity from the commercial C2 uses that are already allowed around the intersection of Luster Mill Road and Bethlehem Road to perhaps a commercial pod that would only allow C1 uses in the area around the clubhouse as you travel toward the residences that are within this development. But regardless of that, staff makes no objection to the applicant's request.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board before we invite the applicant to join us? Is the applicant here? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name's Dale Hall, and I'm with Falcon Design Consultants, speaking on behalf of Green Valley Golf Club, which is asking for the modification to the master plan development tonight. We've read the staff report, and we understand the recommendation by staff and have no objection to that. The main concern that we have is we wish to change the clubhouse area and the maintenance area to a C2 zoning, and like I had mentioned briefly, that we've read staff report and in support of that. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions you have specifically about our application.
Okay. Any questions from the board before we open up the public hearing?
I have a question.
Okay, Commissioner Clements.
Staff has said the C1 was a better zoning. Are you okay with the C1, or are you still saying C2?
We would still want the C2 use. It's more in line with the uses that we would be, right now, it is a clubhouse. It's in a it's a clubhouse, which is a commercial use that is in a residential zoning. The future of this could be a C2, so that's what we've asked for, and that's what we're continuing to look to zone this to. The other area, which is to the north of this, is where the maintenance shed is, and that's again a C2 use that we would prefer to have, and that's why we requested that this evening.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, well, we'll begin the public hearing aspect of this, and again, 10 minutes will be granted to those in total for those wishing to speak in opposition, and then 10 minutes for the group that would want to speak in favor. So at this time, we just ask those who are wishing to speak in opposition to please come forward, and please state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Ignatius Kusher. My wife Patricia and I reside at 600 Lester Mill Road on approximately 10 acres of property which abuts Eagles Brook. A portion of Indian Creek flows through our property, and we have lived there since July of 1994. When Eagle Brook was first proposed in 1999, it was a very poorly planned development. Numerous issues: watershed, wetlands, lack of sewer, irregular property lines, and more. When it was finally approved in 2000, there were 23 conditions attached to the rezoning application. Some of these conditions were not complied with, even though the county was notified in each instance. For instance, condition 3, due to the sewer installation problems, the 40-foot buffer on the southeastern part of the project was cleared, and a sewer line was installed, creating serious drainage problems. Condition number 8, when Lester Mill was paved, it could not be constructed according to plan due to an existing large water distribution line previously installed by the Henry County Water Authority. Hence, there are blind spots, excessive grades, and no shoulders in certain areas. The proposed tunnel for the golf course had to be changed to a bridge for the same reason. The residents were promised by then Commissioners Holder and Mathis that the speed limit would be posted at 35 miles per hour and no trucks would be allowed. We now have a 45-mile-per-hour speed limit, and trucks utilize the road on a regular basis. Enforcement is little to none. We have been advised, and I wish to stress that this has not been confirmed, that the road has not been certified due to construction issues and does not comply with proper standards. Any citations would not be enforceable. Condition number 9, the Lester Mill Road and Bill Gardner Parkway intersection has become hazardous. Is money available for the owner for signalization? Condition number 17, signs on Lester Mill Road shall be no more than 8 feet in height, monument-based, and total of 64 square feet. A photo in your report shows a sign at the intersection of Lester Mill Road and Bethlehem Road approximately 20 feet in height. And condition 21, I can assure you that the certificate of occupancy were issued prior to sewer being available. This development has created problems for area residents since 2000, 18 years ago. In the meantime, it has greatly impacted our quality of life. Now the county is being asked for a modification to the master plan. Modification is a high-class word for variance. Variants are usually granted due to a hardship that was not created by the property owner. In this case, any hardship is self-inflicted. The golf course included an existing clubhouse. The owner chose to construct a separate clubhouse. This was their decision. The only reason for this modification is for economic gain. For this reason, and the fact that we do not need to set a precedent for more commercial zone in a residential area, we ask that this application be denied. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to please come forward. Calling again, anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to please come forward. Thank you. So at this time, we'll now allow anyone wishing to speak in favor to please come forward. Calling again, anyone wishing to speak in favor to please come forward. Hearing none, we've now concluded the public hearing for this zoning matter. We ask the applicant to please come forward so that we can address any questions or comments from the board. So at this time, are there any questions or comments from the board? Okay, Commissioner Clemens.
I would just like to say to the applicant that I've had several meetings with the residents that live in the golf course community at Eagles Brook, and several of them are here tonight, and they did not come up because we've had so many meetings, and I can say that I've probably spoken to more than 100 of them from the meetings that we've held here at the county as well as the meetings in the clubhouse. And there were some conditions that they were concerned about in order for the approval or the support of this, and I would like to read those additional conditions to make sure that the applicant would be okay with the conditions. One is that all outdoor events shall be discontinued by 10 p.m. That the exterior of the existing building shall not be modified or expanded. That both tracks must be kept neat and in an orderly fashion. And that the existing clubhouse shall be limited to an event facility only. They said that this is already an event facility because it's a clubhouse and they're already having events there, so they didn't have an issue with the event facility. And also, I have a question for Stacy. Are you allowed to have that event facility in a C1 zoning?
Yes, ma'am.
So we would restrict this to a C1 zoning. So those would be the conditions in order to garner my support of the. Of course, you have 5 other commissioners here, but.
If I may, this is the first time that I've heard of these conditions, and I'm not aware that my applicant has heard, my client and the applicant has heard of any of these conditions. I can't speak on behalf of them whether those are acceptable or not. My only request this evening.
He's here.
So he may be able to clear this up.
Do I need to say my address, or can I just talk?
Yeah, can you give us your name and address?
My name is Jason Schwiniger. I live at 468 South Bethany Road, Locust Grove, Georgia. No problem with the clubhouse on C1. We would like to keep the C2 zoning on the maintenance building, but the clubhouse, we feel good about C1. As long as it allows, the banquet facility like we talked about.
Now, the borders, I was concerned about the borders of the tree line. Has it been legally moved that you won't see that the maintenance shed from the property of the clubhouse?
Yeah, when they changed the boundary, I went out and measured from where that tree line starts to the fence line, and so it's exactly where those Leland cypresses are. So they shouldn't see it at all.
So, Patrick, can we split this up to be?
Certainly can.
Okay.
You could certainly call for the larger tract to be C1, subject to those conditions, and the smaller tract, and I think Stacy can tell us the acreage, the smaller tract would be C2 with those conditions.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, hearing none, the floor is now open for a motion.
Okay, I would like to move to approve the zoning of the pod to the Eagles Brook, what was it, the clubhouse maintenance pod to be moved from a PD development to C1 for the clubhouse and C2 for the maintenance area, with the following conditions: that all outdoor events at the clubhouse should be discontinued by 10 p.m., that any exterior of the existing building shall not be modified or expanded, no building, that there will be no building on the commercial property of the C1, that both tracks must be kept neat and in an orderly fashion, and that the existing clubhouse shall be limited to an event facility only.
Okay, we've heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We've got a second. Is there any other questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, all in favor of the zoning that was just, the motion that was just made with the modifications and the split from C1 for the clubhouse and C2 for the maintenance facilities, again with the stated conditions. Any other questions or comments? All in favor? Any opposed? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now move into the public comment section of the evening, and we welcome our citizens to voice their county-related concerns and opinions that are not listed in the agenda. And so we're asking all persons wishing to speak during the public comments to sign in with the county clerk and complete the comment speaker form at the beginning of the meeting. So I'll now look to the county clerk to identify our public comments and the guests that would like to speak.
Sorry. We have two tonight, Bill Toney and Larry Morey.
Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Bill Toney, McDonough, Georgia. First, I'd like to thank you, Ms. Wood. From what I understand, you reached out this past week. I thank to Sabrina Crawford, and I appreciate that. I appreciate what you're doing. I wished everybody else could get on board the way you did. Thank you. Second, I'd like to ask Commissioner Prince, basically, if you're a police officer. He is the board, ma'am.
I know, just the Board of Commissioners, please, without an
Okay.
individual, please.
Do you know if Mr. Prince is a police officer? Am I going to get an answer? So I'm assuming that he's not a police officer. I'd like to ask if he's ever ridden in a police car in uniform. And I'd like to know if he's post-certified as a police officer. Okay. The answer is yes, he has ridden in a police car. He has dressed up like a police officer. He's in, as far as I can tell, he looks like a police officer. Well, it says, Henry County Code, Section 3-4-4-203, impersonating the police. It shall be unlawful for any person to wear, carry the uniform, apparel, badge, identification card, or any other insignia of office, like or similar to a colorable imitation of the adopt or worn carried by official police officers of the county, such as official police of the county. This shall not affect the right of any employees or officials to carry. Okay, according to this, you kind of broke the rules, dude. All right. Can you pick out the one that's not the police officer? Mr. Prince, you're the shortest one there. You are not a police officer. Again, he is part of the board, ma'am. But what I'd like to say is, by code here, these guys should arrest you. You can get 5 years in prison for this, and ma'am.
I'm sorry, but thank you.
This is not a pretend thing. This is real business. The police are real business. You can't put these guys in any jeopardy or anything like that, acting like a police officer, running around here like a SWAT team. Because you can't do things like that. It's against the law. You have to follow the law just like everybody else. It's just crazy. I hope, you said you went down to get the fire truck. I hope you have a CDL or commercial driver's license if you drove it back. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Larry Morey with Ethics in Government. You know, we in Henry County, if you stand up against someone or somebody, you automatically become labeled. You automatically have your basic rights affected. And you know, it should be our goal to work things out. If I come to you and suggest something, you should at least give me the respect to listen. And if it doesn't sound right, you should respect me enough to check it out and to address that problem. After all, isn't that what we are trying to do, is make Henry County a better place to live and cut the cost of doing government? Here in this room, it appears that if you come and question or suggest, then you're to be restricted. If you come any other way, you kind of pat it on the back and have as much time and much support as you need. But if I ask you to do something, you should check it out and find out the cost of doing those things. And I'm going to give you an example. Tonight, there was restrictions put on places, on properties. I opened a school on Walker Drive. I would say of the 5 acres there, it's probably got more trees and shrubs and flowers than any 5 acres in Henry County. It's about all full. Got big old trees that big around, and just hundreds of them. And yet, when I went to get my CO to move into the school, I had to plant 5 more cedar trees, to make it, I guess, look like they wanted it to look. I reckon it's the only thing I can figure. Anyway, we did it just to get our CO. I read one of your magazines when I come in tonight, and it said of the places most prevalent to move in the Atlanta area. Out of the 20 places to live and move to in Atlanta, none of them was Henry County. I looked at your 3 message boards in the lobby, and it talked about developing the county in an equal pattern. And everybody was for it. Everybody wants that. But it's just not the truth. I asked you 2 years ago to do something about trucks and warehouses, and it just went on deaf ears. But now I know why. It seems that there is a concentrated effort. And these poor old people that live out here on that golf course, they ain't seen nothing yet what they're going to see. And the sad thing are, a bunch of them going to move off and leave Henry County. We think trucks and warehouses are bad now. Wait another year. We ain't seen nothing yet. But it's okay, because most people's going to have to move out of Henry County that don't like that kind of growth. And y'all don't seem to care. But there's 4 or 5 good old boys in leadership positions in the county that have sold out to Deal and the rest of them at the Capitol, and they've promoted these trucks and warehouses for Henry County, and we're going to live and die with them. So it's okay. I'm not going to leave any more sloop about it. I'm having to move my school because of it. But I do know why now. Why, June? I'm going to address this to you.
Please address the board, Mr. Moore.
Well, I'll address it to the board.
Thank you.
You got you an appointment from the state last week, and you got your appointment. That's what you wanted, and I'm sure you and Deal.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. You're out of time.
Appreciate it. But
thank you.
The county needs to know what you did.
You're out of order, and thank you. Okay, at this time, we'll now move into the approval of our minutes for the February 27th workshop meeting, and also for the March 6th regular Board of Commissioners meeting. Are there any revisions to the minutes? Hearing none, we call for a motion.
Move to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any further comments or questions? All in favor? Any opposed? At this time, are there any commissioner comments? Okay, Commissioner Prince.
I actually have my own public comment to make. I need to thank a commissioner. I drive down Oak Grove Road every day, and it was just repaved. And I believe that's your district, Gary. Thank you very much. It was a terrible road, and I appreciate you paving it. Thank you.
Commissioner Clemens.
There's a community-wide sunrise service for Easter at Nash Farms Park that several of the preachers are starting and doing. So if anyone is looking for a place to worship on Easter Sunday morning, 7 a.m.
Good, thank you. Any other commissioners? Hearing none, County Manager.
Chair.
Okay. Regarding our upcoming meetings and events, there will be a March 27th workshop meeting at 9:00 a.m. and also a regular Board of Commissioners meeting on April the 3rd at 9:00 a.m. So at this time, I understand we have a request to adjourn to executive session regarding personnel matters. So we're now open for the floor for a motion to adjourn to executive session.
So moved.
We have a motion. I think I heard a second. Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Thank you. We will now adjourn to the executive session.